Welcome to Café of Delights, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gail West. We are at the precipice of one of the most exciting evolutions in human history, from science to spirituality, culture, arts, cutting-edge psychotherapies, new economies, and more. We will explore how to create a world where all can thrive. In a series of riveting interviews, you'll have the opportunity to hear from those that are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. Join me, your host and author of the book Money Come Dance With Me, Gail West, to be inspired, delighted, and filled with hope for a new reality. Café of Delights starts now. Welcome to Café of Delights. I'm your host, Gail West, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. Typically, I have a guest and we riff off a topic, but I'm going to riff myself. I'm going to do a solo riff for you, and I hope that you will find it inspiring and enlightening. So I'm going to start with a question that I ask everybody else. So, can't do something for them and not for me. And what is bringing me hope and what delights my soul? Hope, we have to have hope in the heart. So one of the things that brings me hope is New Year's. I love, love, love the beginning of the year. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, but also, that so many people around the world are wanting a new reality, wanting something different, and taking action towards it. And if you look around, and don't listen to the news, but if you look around, you will see that there are good people everywhere. There are people that care, that are people that are taking action to create a world where all can thrive. And that's what brings me hope. And the other thing is beauty. What delights my soul is beauty. So right now, I am looking out my window and I'm seeing my beautiful redwood tree. It is just stunning and it's so beautiful. And I love, love, love this time of year. It just is filled with so much possibility. There's something about the beginning of the year. So a year is big enough, long enough that magic can happen, and it's short enough that it's not overwhelming. So let me give you an example of magic that happened to me 2 years ago. I've always wanted to live in California. I had lived here for a winter in Mammoth Lakes, which is up in the mountains. It's a ski resort. I wasn't skiing at the time, but I was having a blast, and I always felt like this was my home. This is where I wanted to live, but I never thought it was possible. And I would, so over the last few years, I would go into my heart and I'd say, heart, what do you really want? What do you desire? Which is an idea I'm going to give you later when we talk about desire. And I'd hear mountains, I'd hear beauty, easy access to nature. Now I have to understand, I was living in a 3-floor walk-up, and getting outside to be in nature was not an easy proposition. And then we had a little teeny garden in the backyard that was pretty teeny. And there weren't any mountains. I lived in Chicago. I say that the only elevation we had was overpasses. And it just never seemed possible. Now, to create anything, you have to have a belief, you have to have desire, and you have to have expectancy. I had desire. I really wanted that. I had belief. I believed it was possible, but I didn't expect it. So 2 years ago, January, this time of year, I was in California. I'd done a workshop for a nonprofit up here. And I wanted to stay in an area where my aunt and uncle used to live. My aunt had died. My uncle was in an assisted living, and I had got a room at a hotel right across the street from this beautiful little park that we would go walk in when we'd go to visit him. And it was Baylands Park. It's not particularly spectacular considering all the other spectacular parks around here. But it was beautiful, and I was walking at sunset. I was watching the sun set over the Santa Cruz Mountains, which are this gorgeous mountains. They're not very high, but they're filled with trees. They're tree-covered mountains. And I was looking out and I said, I choose to live in a place that's beautiful with mountains and easy access to nature. And 2 days later, I was walking through um, the Henry Caldwell Redwoods Forest with a friend of mine. I said, Julia, I want to live in the mountains. She said, well, how far are the mountains? I said, I don't know, maybe 15 hours to the Smokies, but I've never been there. Maybe 24 hours to the Rockies. And then I thought to myself, that's really far. She said, well, there's an apartment available right next door to us. And said, so I came back, I FaceTime my partner, and he's going, I don't want to live in California. Okay, whatever. But 8 months later, we're driving up into that very same apartment and with two camp chairs, a little table, and a blow-up bed, and some pots and pans and whatever until our pod came. That is magical. So when I say that that a year can be really magical, it can be. So when you think about gyms, the first 2 weeks of the gym, any gym, there's an onslaught of people that are going to the gym. And about 2 weeks later, about half of them are gone. And about a month later, most of them are gone. So why is it that 92% of the people that make New Year's resolutions never make it happen? So we're going to talk about that. That's an interesting thing. So the past couple of episodes, we've explored with Marty Lucas, we were talking about heart and soul's desire. The last episode, we were talking about going into the Akashic records and sharing the wisdom for the Akashic records that'll guide you in this year. And this episode is called Envision. What do you really want? What do you really want? So I'm going to put that question out. What do you really want? So just ponder that for a minute. Okay. So I want to share a quote with you from my book, Money Come Dance with Me. And I've been talking to the consciousness of money for the past, I think since 2010, 2011. And I go into how that happened in my book, but just know that money has a consciousness. So one day, money said to me, you must become aware of your transceiver. All of creation is constantly sending and receiving. But most humans are not conscious that they create their lives in each moment by what they are sending and what they're able to receive. You must become aware of what you are sending and receiving. This is the key to true power. Now, I had never heard of the word transceiver. I thought it was this cool new word that money had made up in the universe. But a few months later, my partner, when I mentioned that quote to him, he said, the transceiver is a real thing. I said, seriously? He said, yeah. So he had been a ham radio operator, and that it's a ham radio term. The transceiver is a device that has the ability to transmit and receive signals on the same frequency. So both transmitting and receive signals on the same frequency. But if your transceiver is misaligned, you could be asking for something on one frequency and it's not realized, and not realizing it's showing up on another frequency. That is amazing. So I've read and reread this quote many, many, many times and pondered and pondered. And every time I do, I'm kind of humbled by what it implies. That true power lies in absolute clarity. that what you are sending into the field is what you truly desire, and in your ability to receive it when it comes. Now, unfortunately, most of us are hanging out in the past. I don't know about you, but I spend way too much time thinking, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. Having anxiety or what should have happened or what could have happened, and worrying about what might happen in the future. But when we are aligned and realigned with what we truly want, then that is the key to true power. Now, I look at the idea that we have a creative cycle. And there are four aspects to the creative cycle. And it's intrinsically clear that it depends upon what your ability to receive, and it's connected to the signals you're receiving, you're sending into the field. Desire is one. It's helpful to know what you want. Action, need to take action on what you want. Receiving. A lot of people are stuck and they're not willing to receive. And completion, like God at the end of his creation, looking back and going, it is good, it's done. Now, you can have a barrier to any one of those things. A barrier to desire, where you have no idea what you want. And so if you don't know what you want, you'll never know if you actually got it or not. And that leads to deep frustration and an ache in the heart, because truly, deep down inside, we really do know what we want. But something is blocking us or blocking you from knowing it, from consciously knowing it. Well, you may know what you want, but you may have a barrier to action. So part of that is you might think, well, I can't have what I want. It's not okay for me to have what I want. I don't deserve to have what I want. So there's this thing out there that you want, but you never take action towards it. So some of it is you're not committed to it, and there's no movement towards action. And since we live in a three-dimensional world, it's really important to take action based on our desires. Taking action, seizing opportunities, saying yes are signals to the universe that then bring those synchronicities back to us. A strong desire and clarity in sending signals will bring those opportunities. But without taking action, we always stay in the plane of wishing. Like, I wish it'd be really nice. I don't know about you. I hear so many people go, well, wouldn't it be nice to have this? Or I'd love to have that. Or, wow, it'd be great to have that. But you don't choose it. It's really important to consciously choose. Like, I consciously chose that I wanted to live in the mountains. I wanted to live in a place that was beautiful. My redwood tree, hello. And I wanted to have easy access to nature. I walk out the door and there it is. So I'll tell you a little story. I love stories. So a number of years ago, I was obsessed. I don't know how I came to be obsessed with Istanbul. I really wanted to go to Istanbul. I'd never been there. And I thought, oh, Istanbul, I don't like whatever. And so I looked at flights, I read books, read travel books, I shared with all my friends. This friend of mine came back from downtown Chicago, and the travel agency of Istanbul or Turkey was there, and she brought all these books back for me. And now, understandably, I was not in a financial situation to where Istanbul was even a probability. But amazingly, a year later, I found myself in Istanbul, staying in a lovely boutique hotel, steps from the main square, and a view of the harbor. And my actions gave a really strong signal to my transceiver that this was something I desired, and I was ready to receive it. Now, I want you to remember what Money said about receiving, because this is key. So many people have a barrier to receiving. Most humans are not conscious that they create their lives in each moment by what they are sending and their ability to receive. And that's really key, their ability to receive. And in all of my work with money, all of my many years of working with clients, um, that having open receiving channels is really of utmost important. And that most people have a barrier to receiving, to really receiving um, all the good that life has to offer. And if there's a barrier to receiving, we're consistently emotionally undernourished due to our inability to recognize the good that when it comes, or even to take it in. So there's never a sense of satisfaction or enough. And if we create our lives in each moment, then receiving the nourishment of those moments is what brings joy and delight. That's the key to bringing joy and delight. Because moment by moment, we can choose what we want. We can shift. And then the last stage of the creative cycle is completion. I look at receiving and completion as really intimate dance partners. I love that word, intimate dance partners, because completion is actually a form of receiving. When with completion comes fulfillment, a sense of satisfaction, and when there's barriers to completion, nothing is ever finished. No, let me give an example of that. My stepfather, oh my God, he had major barriers to receiving. So he built this massive, I don't know how many square foot, many square foot home on the top of a rock pile. And it was, it had windows all around it. At one point, many years ago, he was offered like 2 point something million dollars. And this was in St. Cloud, Minnesota. But for about 10 years, the bulbs were hanging off the ceiling on their wires until my sister got married and they had to finish them up for the wedding, and because they were going to have people over. So I realized that one of my issues with receiving and not being able to finish receiving was that I didn't have a very good example excuse me, of completion. And I'm a painter, and I know that I could be dinking around on my paintings forever because it's, you know, I have to do this little thing and this little thing, this little thing. But there's a point at which you got to sign the paint. You got to sign the painting. You got to sign the painting and say it's complete. It's done. Because what I know for as a painter, when I start bypassing knowing when it's complete, it always is not good. And then those concepts, those projects, those ideas, they pull at us. They're always calling for our attention. Me. And then it's stressful and it takes energy and we're never feeling satisfied or a sense of completion. Okay, and understanding where you're aligned and where you're blocked in the creative cycle is really important to becoming the predominant creative force in your life. And effectively dancing with your life, with money, and understanding that this is the key to true power. Now, since we don't live in a vacuum, it's really important to recognize that others' energies can influence us. So, for example, the thing that makes the economy go up and down is collective fear. Wall Street is run by collective fear and collective optimism. And so when you think about that, fear is in the field. Hello, fear is in the field. So coming back to center is really essential to recognize that clarity and awareness of your own transceiver will mitigate the impact of the collective energies around you. Now we're going to take a break. I hope you're finding this fun and inspiring. And when we come back, I'm going to go more into barriers to receiving and how to shift that, barriers to desire and how to shift that. And this is Gail West, and we're on the Café of Delights, and this is Envision. What do you truly want?
Imagine if you were truly flourishing, how would your financial expansion impact the world? Author of Money Come Dance With Me, Gail West is an internationally known speaker, creative catalyst, and business intuitive at Success with Soul. Work with Gail to create a new relationship with money as your friend. Link the soul of your business to the business of your soul with programs like Sacred Money Mastery, Akashic Records of the Soul, and more. To receive a healing money meditation, go to successwithsoul.com today.
Café of Delight, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gail West. Tune into transformationtalkradio.com every second and fourth Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We are at the precipice of one of the most exciting evolutions in human history. On Café of Delights, you will hear from those that are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. For more information on hope for a new reality, visit Gail West at successwithsoul.com. And this is Gail West, and I'm back. You are on the Café of Delights, and we've been talking about the transceiver. And I want to quote it again. So it's I'm going to read from my book here. You must become aware of your transceiver. All of creation are constantly sending and receiving. But most humans are not conscious of what they create in their lives in each moment by what they are sending and what they're able to receive. You must become aware of what you're sending and receiving. This is the key to true power. So we've been talking about the cycle of creation, which is desire, belief, and expectancy. No, desire. Those are the three aspects to making something happen. But actually, desire, action, receiving, and completion. So I want you to think about take time to ponder your transceiver and I'll think back on your life. And so how conscious have you been of your signals? So this requires a lot of mindfulness and awareness of yourself. And we're going to go more into that in soon. But just notice the patterns. That's really helpful. So many years ago, I'd come back from China and looking at my life and I'm going, okay, what must I believe to have the life that I've created and not created? What must I believe? And I started thinking about going back into, oh, maybe I believe this, maybe I believe I don't deserve, maybe I believe blah, 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 and really feeling into and you'll kind of know what your those things are when you start noticing the patterns. Like, what are you sending into the field? What are your signals? Because our paradigms are strong. They have our sense of reality is strong, and what is possible is strong. But if you look around you, there are other people that have other things that's also possible for you. And considering what frequency are you consistently broadcasting on? Is it in alignment with what you really want? And so if you have a barrier to desire, that's going to be tough. So you don't know. So we're going to go more into how to shift your barrier to desire. Is there a barrier to desire, action, nourishment, receiving, completion? And that's going to help you to kind of get a sense of where you are with your transceiver. And know, as Money says, in any moment, we create our lives in each moment. So at any moment, you can shift. At any moment, you can change. At any moment. And that's what's so incredibly powerful. Each moment, moment by moment, we create our lives moment by moment. So I'm going to go first. I know we talked about desire, action, and receiving and completion are part of the cycle. But I'd like to go first into receiving because that is a place where most people are really, really stuck. So I'm gonna I love this quote. If any of you have watched the movie Anti-Mame, it's a really, really old movie, and it's one of those black and white ones. But it's one of my favorite movies. And this is a quote from her. Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death. I'm going to say that again. Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death. Ponder on that one. I love it. So a number of years ago, during a guided imagery music session, I had a vision where I was standing on a hill, looking out. It was a really high hill, looking down on a small village. It had narrow streets, brightly colored buildings, and it looked like out in the distance was the Mediterranean. And next to me was this large being that was dressed in these flowing, beautiful robes. And he swept his arm across the scenes, saying, Look, look at the garden of earthly delights. Look at these gifts. These are the gifts of the divine for the humans, for all of creation. The beauty of the colors, the green of the grass, flowers, the air, the water, the sun, and the ingenuity of humans to build roads and homes. All of these gifts are from the divine. Why can't they take it in? It's simple. There's no need to hold or grab for stuff, no need for greed or taking. These are gifts to share and multiply. Oh, if they only knew how loved they are, there would be no need for greed or trauma. They would know the joy of delight and delight that radiates joy. They would know the gifts of the divine. They would fully embrace the garden of earthly delights, tastes, smells, sights, touch, sounds. These are the gifts of the human experience. Receive, be open to receive. And when I got that message, it reminded me of a number of years ago when I was having a particularly difficult um, cultural adjustment living in China. And I sat down and I'm tuning in and I was asking my guides, what the hell am I doing in this place? It wasn't really a prayer. It was more like a hello. This is crazy. Anyway, I heard this booming voice saying, you are here to learn to live deliciously. You are here to learn to live deliciously. You know, and one of my mother's favorite sayings is, this life is a vale of tears. So the idea of living deliciously and embracing the garden of earthly delights was not something that I grew. Those are foreign concepts from my childhood. But from this being on the hill and from my guides, I really had to know that being in a body is an incredibly profound gift. And really know that our bodies are our access to senses and to be able to live deliciously. This garden of earthly delights is not to be shunned, but to be celebrated and not to be thought of as evil. And a few years ago, I had a stroke. And fortunately, I pretty much recovered. But I remember being in the hospital and kissing my body and saying, thank you. Dear sweet body, I love you. And I really sensed that my body actually was a separate entity. It was a gift to my soul, a gift to be able to live in this world. And later on, I would walk through the park and I would see people's beings out of their body. It was so cool. So when we think about the idea of living deliciously, the sights, the senses, the fact that we have a taste that are incredible, that we can taste things, um, these are the gifts of the divine. So my friend Maggie had a near-death experience where she was hanging out with her parents in a coma for a couple of weeks, and at one point her mother looked at her and said, "You're not supposed to be here yet." And she woke up, and one of the things that she said is that she had a profound sense of peace, but had no access to the sensations of being in a body. And she shared with me, if people only knew how precious it was to be in a body, they would relish each moment of its experience. The taste, the smells, the beauty of a sunset, the wind against your skin, all of these sensations are moments of true delight. But what I've found is that most people are more comfortable with constriction than with expansion. So most of us have a set point about how much happiness we're going to allow in our lives. So I don't know about you, but a lot of people, when it gets to be kind of they hit their set point, something happens. So if you have a financial set point, you're doing good, 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 and then you're starting to grow, and then something happens, your car breaks down or something like that, and you're back to where you started. Or I remember one time this friend of mine's, my life was going really well, and she was going, "Aren't you afraid that the other shoe is going to drop?" And I'm like, "Hello." Don't do that to me. And then, hello, maybe the other shoe would drop. But the other shoe dropping is one of the biggest things that I think is a very collective experience where we can only have so much happiness. And I really saw that when Princess Di died. And there was this collective grief around the world of over her. Now, look at it. She's this princess that's that's really unhappy. She's finally happy. She's finally have someone that loves her. She's having a life, and she dies. So if it's going to happen to the princess, how much more for me? But it's really important to recognize that that's a collective set points. You could only have so much happiness, and the other shoe will drop. When I was working with money, money kept going on and on and on about clear your receiving channels, your money receiving channels, blah, blah, blah. You have money receiving channels. I'm going, yeah, whatever. I love to tell this story because it's a really good one and a lot of people can relate to it. So one day, I actually had no idea how muddy my receiving channels were. And one day, I'm coming back from the I'm living in Chicago. We have elevated trains. And I had another gathering to go to. It's a Sunday afternoon, and I was kind of hungry, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to get something to eat, and then get to this other gathering. So I walked out of the L platform, and I saw this group of people with all this food. And there was this huge pot of soup, there was bread, there was fruit, and people were offering fruit to passersby. Some people stopped, and other people were looking really suspicious, like who are these people? And then this one young woman caught my eye, and she said, "Would you like some soup?" Well, of course, I hesitated for a moment. I said yes, and so she handed me a bowl of soup. It was really cold, so it was thick, hearty, warm soup and a piece of bread. And she explained that it was a local chapter of the international organization called Food Not Bombs, and it's dedicated to food justice. And every Sunday, they're there at the entrance of the Morris Avenue L station, giving away food And some people do and some people don't. And so the food was really warm and delicious. And I'm holding the bowl. I'm really happy for the warmth they had. And when I was finished, I handed her the empty bowl back. And she said, "Would you like some more?" And I said, "Oh, no, thank you. I've had enough." But I turned to leave. And as I was walking away, although I was still hungry, that was total cause for pause. We have to understand that I'm the second oldest of 11. My sister ran out the door the minute she turned 18. She was 5 years older than I. So for the next 6 years, 5 years, I was there taking care of babies, feeding babies. And there was always this thing about worrying about whether there was enough to go around. And I realized that my perception of my share was really small. And it is in that moment, it's as if I could see myself and what I chose for my life. And what I perceived as my share continued to permeate in my life. I saw how it affected what I asked for, what I expected. I saw how I worried if I took too much. And even though I truly believed, I love that quote, "Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death." I, I, many parts of me were asking for no more than crumbs. And I began to see how constricted my own receiving channels were. So, how to determine what your own set points are? And sometimes those things are really elusive, but it's really start to notice your own internal dialogue. Do you ever find yourself saying things like, "Oh, no matter what I do, I never seem to get ahead. Um, it seems that just when things are going well, something always comes along and I'm back to where I started." Or "I'll always have just enough and no more. This is as good as it gets." So I have this friend of mine who always says, "Well, I always have enough. I always have enough." I said, "Thea, how about more than enough?" More than enough to share and to spare. So when we really listen to our internal dialogue, we begin to understand that the limitations are receiving limitations on receiving is this fundamental question, which is, how much do I actually deserve? And it's not really the advertising messages about you deserve, you deserve, you deserve, which are trying to get you something to buy to prove that you're good enough, to buy something that proves that you're good enough. But instead it asks, do I truly have a right to be happy? Am I enough just as I am? And one day I received a text from one of my clients, and she said, "I've just made my first six figures, and I'm in my business, and there's so much fear coming up, I can't talk. I can hardly barely breathe." Um, and her receiving channels were set for six figures, no more. Um, and really, we had to really revisit old deserving channels, and clearing the way to her being able to have um, unlimited resources. So our structures, our paradigms have a really strong structure, and you can push up against them. And to really look at understanding that there are ebbs and flows in life, but when you really open your receiving channels and you shift your set points, you can ride the waves easily of those set points. You can ride the waves that you don't have to be stuck in the set points. And another way that we have issues with set points is that we withhold from ourselves. You don't. So, for example, creativity is a big thing for me, and I have a master's in fine arts, and I would consistently attend to my artist in my tired time and withhold from myself the things that gave me joy and delight. And I would limit myself as to what brought me joy. So, really think about ways that you might be blocking yourself from nourishment, from receiving, from getting a massage, from spending time in nature, from connecting to a friend, taking a class, buying fresh flowers, playing an instrument. What have you been aching to do, but you don't let yourself do? What do you feel like you need permission to do? Like I hear people say, well, I gave myself permission to do. Like we need a pink slip to be happy? Hello. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about giving you some ideas of ways that you can open your receiving channels and allow for all the good that life has to offer. This is Gail West, and you are on the Cafe of Delights.
Imagine if you were truly flourishing, how would your financial expansion impact the world? Author of Money Come Dance With Me, Gail West is an internationally known speaker, creative catalyst, and business intuitive at Success with Soul. Work with Gail to create a new relationship with money as your friend. Link the soul of your business to the business of your soul with programs like Sacred Money Mastery, Akashic Records of the Soul, and more. To receive a healing money meditation, go to successwithsoul.com today.
Cafe of Delight, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gail West. Tune into transformationtalkradio.com every second and fourth Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We are at the precipice of one of the most exciting evolutions in human history. On Cafe of Delights, you will hear from those that are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. For more information on hope for a new reality, visit Gail West at successwithsoul.com. Okay, you are back on the Cafe of Delights. I'm Gail West, your host, and we've been chatting about the transceiver, and we've been chatting about the cycle of creation, desire, action, nourishment and receiving, and completion. And we've been talking about opening your receiving channels. And that's the most important thing, is being able to receive all the good that life has to offer. And I want to say that our ability to receive is equal to our ability to allow ourselves to be nourished in a deep, core, fundamental way. Being in a state of never enough is a barrier to nourishment. And so if we never ask ourselves in this moment what is good, no matter what you have, all you'll see is what you don't have. And it's really impossible to feel satisfied. And really looking at ways that we withhold from ourselves, overscheduling, not having boundaries around work, which is really common for a lot of entrepreneurs, procrastinating so there's no time for fun, are all examples of ways that I've withheld from myself. And becoming a receptive channel is really essential. So this is another quote from Money. Being a receptive channel is essential to creating everything. It's not about loving money, but being receptive to good, to opportunities, to ideas, to having a lifestyle that is in alignment from your greatest good. So let's look at ways to expand and clear your receiving channels. I think, to me, the secret sauce is keeping your receiver on joy and delight, the wavelength of joy and delight, which is actively focusing on good, looking for and acknowledging the joy in little ways, and how it shows up in the day. And just being aware will help you keep on a frequency in which, my work is about money, but about life, how joy wants to dance with you, how money wants to dance with you. And these are some simple little ways that you can open your receiving channels. Um, one of them is what I like to call lingering in the divine art of lingering. Isn't that cool? The divine art of lingering. And since our brain is actively is kind of oriented to focusing on what doesn't work, you got to really train it to focus on what does work. So when we linger in moments of delight and linger in moments where we really feel full and nourished, when we're at a meal with friends and we're really connecting and loving what we're doing and loving our conversations, linger and really take in those moments of delight. When So one of the things I used to, when I was writing this book, actually I used to go to this particular coffee shop. It was kind of a French one. They play French music. I love that. And I'd have my cup of tea and my little scone, and I would just sit there and sometimes I would just linger in the taste of my Earl Grey tea and the warmth of it, and watch the people and just linger in those moments of delight. So really allow yourself to linger in the being in the divine art of lingering. It's a divine art. And most of us in America in particular don't understand that. We are human doings and not human beings. Now, around the world, they can understand why we do what we do, but because we believe that our doing is our identity, instead of understanding that we are divine beings here to have a human experience, that we are enough and more than enough. And we don't have to prove that to anybody. And another one is joy spotting. And I really, if you like angels, I really suggest you get to know the angel of joy. And she is an amazing angel, a go-to throughout the day. She helps me clear my transceiver when I'm stuck in negativity. And interesting is, in Chicago, we used to say, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes, and things can actually, in 5 minutes, it can go from, one thing to 20 degrees less. Okay. So she's a good one to call on when your emotions feel sucky, and they can go up and down. And I love, love, love the book Joyful by Ingrid Fettel-Lee. It's a great resource. Ingrid Fettel-Lee studied what makes people joyful, and she has all these different ideas of ways that people love joy and they access joy. So like color, beauty, round things. And that's what she says, that's one of the reasons that we love babies, or most people love babies anyway. And she talks about joy spotting, looking around for moments of joy. And it's kind of like the divine art of lingering, but just noticing, what are your joy spots? Those are not, and then really feeling into do you let yourself be praised? Do you allow for compliments to come into your life? Do you give those to other people? Those are ways to allow ourselves to be in joy and delight, and really feel into receiving all the good that life has to offer. Now I'm going to move over to desire. I hope this was helpful. Just really feeling into receiving channels, because this desire is key. Now, desire has gotten a bad rap from many religious traditions, but desire, you got to have desire, or how do you know what you want? And desire is really needed to walk our path, to walk a path of joy and delight, to allow ourselves to know what our purpose is, to know who we are. But it's not about outside. It's not about trying to prove ourselves. It's not about trying to be enough. It's about listening to your heart and know that that love, joy, and delight is your birthright, and it's the birthright of all creation. So when we don't know what we want, it often is because we think we don't, it's not okay to know what we want. We create parts that block us from knowing what we want because maybe we wanted something and we were disappointed. We didn't think that we could have it. We don't feel like we deserve it. So really understand that these are parts that are protecting you from knowing what you want. But our heart knows. So there's a difference between desire and heart's desire. Desire is what we think we want, and heart's desire is what we truly want. And so I'm going to invite you to, don't do this if you're driving, but just put your hand on your heart. And if you do this every day for about 2 weeks, and just for 10 minutes, just ask yourself, heart, what do you really want? What do you desire? And just listen. That's how I knew that my heart wanted mountains, wanted beauty, wanted easy access to nature. That's the first start. And honestly, in the beginning, your heart may not be talking because our heart is constantly chatting. But if we don't listen, the volume goes down. But this is about when you start listening, you start listening, the volume starts going up, going up, going up. And notice in your life, where are things heavy and where are they light? So if you think about doing something, is it heavy? When you think about doing something or having something, does it make your heart sing? Does it bring joy and delight? Or is it trying to fulfill a hole, an empty place where you think you should be enough or you should have this or you deserve or whatever? This is not about that. This is about honoring that our heart is a portal to our soul. It guides us to live our life in joy. And so many of the people that I work with are have a spiritual orientation, and they're really good at knowing what their spiritual path is or spiritual desire is. But it comes at a cost because they're not connected to how am I going to be of service in a way that brings me joy, in a way that's in alignment with being able to truly express who I am, to enjoy all the good that life has to offer, enjoy the garden of earthly delights as a gift from the divine. And I know that so many people have grown up in environments where, like my mother, this world is a vale of tears. You're supposed to suffer. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be this. It's supposed to be that. That's not true. That's the old way of working. The new way is listening to your heart and saying, heart, what do you truly desire? What do you truly want? Now, if you do this for 2 weeks every day and you look back on it, one of the things you're going to see is patterns. And there's ways that you can give yourself these things. So if like beauty is a huge, huge value to me. And if I can't live necessarily in a place that's beautiful, I can bring beauty into my home. I can bring flowers are really important to me. So knowing the things that bring you joy, you say, what are these qualities? How can I bring them into my life right now? And know that choosing, 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 choosing. And years ago, I was a facilitator for a, a workshop called Technologies for Creating. And it was created by a man named Robert Fritz, who wrote a book called The Path of Least Resistance. And he was talking about choice and the fact that all of our choices, the choices that we make for our life, have to be infused with three fundamental choices that are going to guide our lives. The first choice is to be true to yourself. And for many of us, that's a journey because honestly, it, it's a journey to know who we are and what does it mean to be true to ourselves. So listening to your heart, um, opening your receiving channels, allowing yourself um, to really look at your transceiver and what am I creating? That tells you who am I? How do I be true, really true to myself? The next one is to be free. And it's not freedom, freedom. No, no, no. It's not about that. It's about being free from the things that hold you back, being free from having muddy receiving channels, being free from the barriers of desire, being free from the barrier, all the different barriers, and knowing that you are precious and you are enough and you are a child of the divine. That's being free. And the last is being the fundamental creative force in your life. Being the fundamental creative force in your life. So if you understand the transceiver, if you really look at what are you sending and receiving in each moment, and know that just like the weather in Chicago, that it's about constantly aligning and realigning and aligning and realigning. And if you get to the point where you're really good at knowing when you're out of alignment, instead of waiting till you're way out of alignment and life is really sucky, you can navigate the all the the shifts in the planet and the shifts in things and know that there's lots of outside influences and that we are when we really choose what we're going to instead of reacting to things instead of choosing to be part of the fear paradigm that creates that and the anger paradigm that sells newspapers, we can shift back into what I truly desire. I'm choosing to be the predominant creative force in my life. I'm choosing to align and realign. I'm choosing to mindfully allow myself to choose that which is light instead of that which is heavy. I'm choosing to live in joy. I'm choosing to live in delight. I'm choosing. And in that choice, we are incredibly powerful. We are more powerful than we know. You are more powerful than you know. And honestly, today, um, we have the capacity to be the predominant creative force in our life more so than ever. Many centuries ago, that was not so true, but now it is. We're a global universe. We're a global, and together we will create a life. We will create a world where all can thrive. And as you make a commitment to thrive and you make a commitment to support other people to thrive, you can make commitment to the thriving of our planet. You are part of the great paradigm shift. Thank you. Um, and I'm so happy that you're here. I hope this has been inspiring and enlightening for you. And you can, my book, this I've been kind of quoting from my book, Money Come Dance With Me. Here's some, look at it. Money Come Dance With You. Is that great? And how to get a hold of me is Gail at Success with Soul. And I'm very happy that you're here. Now, my next episode is a replay of the very first episode that I did of Jonathan Salk. He's going to be talking about um, his book, A New Reality. And I'm changing the format of my show, which is in the name, which is Reality Re-envisioned. And so thank you for coming and thank you for being here. I'm Gail West, and this is the Café of Delights. Thank you for tuning in to Café of Delights, conversations that enlighten and inspire with me, your host, Gail West. Listen or watch live every second and fourth Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com for a series of riveting interviews from those who are actively working at the edges of local, regional, and global transformation. From science to spirituality, culture, arts, and new economies, and more, we will explore how to create a world where all can thrive. For more information on hope for a new reality, visit me, Gail West, at successwithsoul.com.